Welcome to the Westminster Effects Doxology Podcast. We exist for the glory of God and the tone of his people. I'm Cody Fields. Go buy stuff for your guitar at westminstereffects.com and follow on all the socials, subscribe, comment. You know the drill. We are not joined by the Admiral today, but in person for the first time in a minute.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Bradley Cox, pastor at Resurrection Church, Greer, South Carolina. It's good to be back.
Yeah, when you were walking into here, like you kind of walked past it for a second. It's like, oh no, I need to turn right.
It's been at least a month. At least a month.
You were on vacation. You did all kind of stuff.
Yeah, we took a couple of weeks off in July. July's kind of a slow month for us. We almost intentionally do that, give us, staff a little bit of a break in that time period where everybody seems to be going on vacation. But yeah, I took a couple of weeks off. It was great. I needed it, but I'm glad to be back.
Yeah. It's nice to be in a vocation where you don't dread going back to work, right?
No, I think Mary and I talked about it a lot. I really did find myself this year, and I haven't felt this way in a long time, but I was weary of my routine. And I don't know how to, I don't have a big reason why, but it was just like, every week, but just to break from it for a couple of weeks toward the end of it, I said to Mary, I was like, I'm ready to go back. I'm ready to go back. So that, I guess, means we had a good vacation.
Yeah,
you're ready to come back to your routine. So
exactly. So while you were gone, our pet's heads started falling off.
Yeah.
In terms of famous Christians dying.
Yeah. Was
this your fault?
It was really weird. Like all of a sudden, it seemed like every time I picked up my phone and looked at the news or social media, somebody else had died. So I guess at least one we kind of saw coming.
Right.
And the others maybe not so much, but it was definitely a string of deaths, significant deaths in a row.
Yeah. So that first one, I've made a couple of posts about this personally and with Westminster, is John MacArthur.
Yeah.
Who served as, what was his church? Grace Community?
Grace Community, yeah.
Yeah, so Grace Community Church out in Southern California for 50 years, more than 50 years. He was their pastor. We don't agree with him on everything.
No.
We agree with him on a lot.
Oh, yeah. I have a really interesting, I say relationship with MacArthur. I never met the guy. But, I've made it known on this podcast before that I grew up in the Pentecostal charismatic world, and MacArthur was public enemy number one.
Yeah.
For my whole life growing up, and even into the early days of ministry, he was the guy that was like, Pentecostals questioned whether or not he was saved.
Right. Even before he wrote Strange Fire, he wrote a different book in the 70s or 80s. I don't remember what it was called.
I don't remember the title, but yeah. He was very critical, to say the least, of the Pentecostal charisma. And not only is he a cessationist, he's just very critical of the Pentecostal charismatic movement and doctrine and theology. I did hear him on many occasions say he did not feel like Pentecostal people or churches were all necessarily apostate.
Right.
He just, fundamentally disagreed theologically. And and I feel like in a helpful way, even though he did come across as harsh, pointed out a lot of the flaws and I don't know, the ways in which the Pentecostal charismatic movement negatively affected the evangelical church. And, and I think he was right on most, if not all of that. But the thing that I just grew to love and appreciate so much about him was his commitment to the word and to teach the word faithfully. And anyone who says he did otherwise, even if, we disagree on certain things, I mean, our Paedo Baptist friends would disagree with him. He and R.C. Sproul debated baptism.
That was a fun friendship to watch, too.
It really was. But regardless of what you disagree with him on, a faithful pastor in one church. Mm-hmm. One of the things I never really saw from him, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I never really saw him get on the conference circuit. Right. Like being a keynote here, everywhere. I'm sure he did some of that, but
I'm pretty sure he did G3 several times, but
for the most part, he was faithfully pastoring a congregation in California, and I have a lot of respect for that.
Right.
A lot of respect for that.
As far as I'm aware, kept the main thing. He wasn't, and everyone around him has said too, he wasn't chasing a platform.
No.
The at the time cassette tape ministry, was started because a couple of people in his church were like, we want more people to hear this.
Yeah.
Let's get you on tape so we can pass it around. Let's get you on radio, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't him just trying to make a name for himself like you see so many people doing.
Yeah. One of the things that I heard him say that stuck with me big time was, he said that he wanted to concentrate on the depth of his ministry and he was trusting God with the breadth of it. Mm-hmm. And that made so much sense to me because I feel like I was for a long time surrounded by people who were more concerned about the breadth than the depth. And so that was a very orienting thing for me that he said. Another interesting thing was when I was still in the Pentecostal world, there was a pastor that really was a mentor to me for a lot of years. And I really do believe he's with the Lord now as well. Mm-hmm. He's a good man. I grew to disagree with him on more and more things theologically, but he's a good man. And he ended up on an airplane one time with MacArthur. Sat right beside him. And they, exchanged names and were pastors. And, my pastor friend asked him, like, if you could say anything to the Pentecostal charismatic world, what would it be? Mm-hmm. And he said, pray for discernment.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the right thing because if you've been around those circles and like I have, what you realize is that there's a lot of lack of discernment when it comes to spiritual gifts or when it comes to, aberrant theologies like word of faith and prosperity. There's a lack of discernment. And so I don't know. I feel like MacArthur is a man that the body of Christ should be incredibly grateful for, along the same lines that we're grateful for people like Spurgeon. And certainly R.C. Sproul. And I think people will say the same about John Piper too.
Right. In terms of, how do I phrase this? So I think you can make a distinction between the most important theologian of the 20th century and the most important pastor, right? So I think in terms of theologians, I think it has to be between J.I. Packer and R.C. Sproul. Mm-hmm. In terms of pastors, I think it has to be between John MacArthur and John Piper.
I agree with that 100%.
Especially with how long they served their churches, how faithful they were to the word, and even Piper and MacArthur disagreed on stuff, right? So here's one thing I find interesting about MacArthur is his church was involved in some, it seems, I don't know all the details, some mishandling of abuse cases, like domestic type stuff. But, and I'm not making a one-to-one comparison with MacArthur and Donald Trump, but whenever Trump has some kind of scandal, it either slides off of him, or as Ben Shapiro puts it, Donald Trump is made out of mud and you sling mud and it just becomes more of the mud monster.
Yeah, right, right.
Right. And so there's some Teflon going on with scandals, and none of those issues, those mishandled cases, assuming they were, because I don't know all the details, they never got to MacArthur himself.
Yeah.
As opposed to like what we see going on in some of the charismatic world with Michael Brown and those allegations, or Sean Bowles and his Facebook prophecies and stuff like that, is those have all stuck to those people, or even Driscoll with his abusive leadership styles. That's probably a closer a comparison there.
Yeah.
But nothing ever stuck to MacArthur himself. And I find that really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, especially for somebody who did it that long.
Yeah.
I think we're all flawed people, and but I outside looking in, I mean, we don't know the inner workings of Grace Community or MacArthur's sort of side. I don't know what Piper has Desiring God. Charles Stanley had In Touch. MacArthur has Grace to You. I don't know the inner workings of that, but it seems like MacArthur, outside looking in, is a type of leader that did what Tim Keller talked about towards the end of his life, is that if you're going to have a highly influential ministry, you've got to diversify power.
Right.
And it seems like MacArthur surrounded himself with really good people. But I want to go back to something you said earlier too about him and Piper maybe being one of the most significant pastors, some of the most significant pastors of our lifetime, as compared to Packer and, would you say, Sproul, as theologians. I think I would say this probably of Sproul too. It's seems to be a rare thing to have someone with the academic chops of a Sproul, MacArthur, Piper, who also has not only pastoral sensitivities, but actually pastors a local church.
Right.
I mean, it seems like the academic side of things and the pastoral side of things often get separated. And I love to see that combo of guys who really have rigorously studied the Bible and theology, and also are pastors and shepherds at heart. I think that in and of itself is such a huge contribution and such a huge encouragement to people like me. I don't feel like I have the academic chops of those guys at all, but I am a pastor and a shepherd, and I lean on those guys for both the shepherding and the academic parts of pastoring. So very, very grateful for John MacArthur.
And before any of the OPC guys freak out at me, I can include J. Gresham Machen in the most important theologians too. Just calm down. That whole splitting from the PCUSA thing was kind of important. All right, next guy. Real name Terry Bollea. We know him as Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, we have swung the pendulum.
Yes. So we have gone from very buttoned up pastor to a guy who used to tear his shirt off on TV for a living. A guy who was not immune from scandal, or immune to scandal, I should say.
Did he have a reality TV show for a while?
Yeah, he did. And it was trashy.
I never watched it, but yeah.
But a year and a half ago, he got baptized, and he said that he was totally surrendering to Jesus.
Yeah.
So what now? Did John MacArthur greet Hulk Hogan at the pearly gates with a body slam of his own, or?
One of the things I've been stewing on lately, just in the last few weeks, I did a lot of thinking about this on vacation.
Yeah.
In Hebrews, we are instructed to come before the throne of grace boldly, to enter with confidence and full assurance. In other words, as believers, we belong in God's presence. And, there are, naturally speaking, there are settings in my life where my entrance and my acceptance into those settings is to some degree or another based on merit. I've earned the right to be there. Right? Just a real small example. When I pull into my driveway at the end of the day, I don't go into my home timidly.
Yep.
It's my home.
Yep.
I've earned the right to be there.
Yep.
When it comes to God's presence, I come in like I belong, but I don't I didn't merit that in any way. And so when you look at someone like MacArthur and Hulk Hogan, and you put them side by side, and you look at their lives, you look at the story of their lives, you look at a guy who pastored a church for 50 years, wrote books, faithfully taught the Bible, wasn't a perfect man, but he certainly, the kind of scandal that, here's somebody else who died recently, Jimmy Swaggart.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not here to throw stones at Swaggart, but everybody's seen the video.
Right.
Forgive me, I have sinned in front of thousands of people. MacArthur never had that.
Yep.
And yet you put Hulk Hogan and MacArthur beside each other, and 50 years of pastoring, reality TV show, pro wrestler, and at the end of his life, let's say he comes to Christ and is baptized, and he belongs in God's presence just as much as MacArthur.
Yep.
That, if we're not the judge of men's hearts, we're just observing. You'll know them by their fruit.
Yep.
But it's the gospel is amazing. It's utterly amazing and astounding and foolishness to the world.
Yeah.
Because why would somebody like Hulk Hogan be welcomed into God's presence in the same manner as someone like MacArthur, except for the fact that it's only in the righteousness of Christ that we stand?
It took the same amount of grace, the same amount of propitiation for both of those guys to make it.
That's exactly right.
And and now they are experiencing the same amount of glory
and joy.
Yeah.
That will never end.
Yep.
That's full. I mean, like you pause and think about it for a minute, and it's literally mind blowing.
Yeah, and that word there, and I learned this from listening to James White. That word for foolishness that Paul uses to describe the proclamation of the gospel, like it's foolishness to the world, is the same word that we get our word moron from. It's moiros. You are a moron according to the world for believing this.
Yep.
And even the proclamation of the gospel to dead people and only trusting God's sovereign work to bring them to life that makes you a moron too.
Yeah.
Like that is a stupid thing if it's all on your shoulders.
That's right. We're going to be forever praising his glorious grace. That's it. I mean, that will be, I think, the essence of eternity is that the Bible does seem to indicate reward in heaven.
Right.
But
and I don't think the resurrection at the end of all things, I don't think the resurrection is just going to be a worship service forever.
No, I think there'll be purpose.
But the praise will always be there.
The praise will always be there. And so that's just fascinating. And I always think about the parable that Jesus told about the guy who owned a vineyard, and he hired laborers at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And when it came to the end of the day, he paid them all the same thing. And the guys who worked all day long are like, hey, that's not fair. And the point of the parable is the gospel's not fair.
Right.
Grace is not. We don't want fair.
You don't want fair.
You don't want fair.
Fair sends you straight to hell.
You want grace.
Yeah.
And so, man, what a contrast. But that's just it drives us to think about the gospel, and I love that.
Yeah. So next guy who died very famous recently with some amount of connection to Christianity, we'll put it that way, is one John Michael Osbourne, better known as Ozzy Osbourne. Incredibly influential in modern music.
Yeah.
You do not have modern metal without Black Sabbath. You just don't. Are you familiar with how Black Sabbath got their guitar tone?
No.
So Tommy Iommi he still plays left-handed. But when he was 17, he lost the tips of his two middle fingers working in a machine shop.
Wow.
And so he couldn't feel the strings. So he had to use lighter strings. When you down tune lighter strings, they get darker. But he also melted down plastic bottles to be covers for his fingers. And that gave him that really, really dense guitar tone. So I especially think of like Iron Man, that just incredibly dense tone with the cranked gain and whatever, which was revolutionary at the time.
Yeah.
But even further down, like with Ozzy's solo stuff like Crazy Train, where he worked with Randy Rhoads, later on after Rhoads died, Zakk Wylde, still an enormous influence in heavier music for decades.
You know, and Guns N' Roses, when I was growing up, and you know, in church in particular, I mean, I don't know if you experienced these kinds of things, but we used, you know, they would get, we'd have youth events, youth services, or whatever, and somebody would get up there and rail about secular music, and we'd have these big tape. It started with tapes, then it came to CD burnings, tape burnings, burn all your secular music. Guns N' Roses was one thing. Metallica was one thing. But Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath, that was like, that's Satan worship, right? Like I mean, to be honest, I've never really listened to much of Ozzy Osbourne. I think probably because of how it was like you were going to go to hell if you even said that you listened to it on the radio, much less bought a tape or CD. Like it was just like I was almost scared of it, kind of like I would be of Marilyn Manson or that crazy group we did a podcast on one time that they're intentional blasphemers.
Oh, Behemoth.
That's how I felt about Ozzy Osbourne growing up. I mean, I know the opening riff of Crazy Train. I mean, who doesn't?
Especially since we live in the South, and if you watched the Braves at all during the
Chipper
90s,
Jones.
That was Chipper Jones' walk-up song.
Every time. And so, yeah, I've come to believe, and I think this is true, that for the most part, at least with somebody like Ozzy Osbourne, that stuff it's an act. It's a caricature, right? That goes along with the music and so-called art.
Alice Cooper still has that act, and he was buddies with Sproul. Golfing buddies with Sproul. So.
Yeah. Boy, that's another interesting guy. But you said this before. I didn't know this, but you said Ozzy was baptized Anglican. As a child?
As a child, kind of, from what I can tell in, you know, the quick research I did, seems that his family was kind of Creaster Anglicans of Christmas and Easter, maybe some stuff here and there. And so he didn't really grasp a lot of things, and especially like in his music career, there were a lot of drugs involved. But I have seen this social media post going around, and the guy seems credible that a couple years ago he gave Ozzy a Bible with his name printed on it, and it was like a New Believer's Bible or something like that, where the language was simplified and whatever, and he was legitimately happy about it. And reportedly, at another event, I think it was Jack Osbourne, Ozzy's son, told this guy, like, he won't put that thing down, effectively. Like, he loves that thing. He doesn't go anywhere without it. And so it's like, what do we do with that as Christians? Because you have preached funerals of family members, of members of our church who very much were not actually Christians. Right.
I have.
And one of the things that you're careful about is you don't want to preach someone into heaven, quote unquote. You don't want to give false hope of, oh yeah, he's totally hanging out with Jesus right now, even though there was literally no fruit for the last 40 years.
Yeah, I did a funeral fairly recently of a guy that I've known for years and years and years. And this is a guy that I know had heard the gospel, had stints in his life where he was a part of the church. But the last 20 years, I had no basis upon which to stand up and confidently say I believed he was in heaven.
Right. As opposed to when we had Miss Betty's funeral, our pastor emeritus's late wife. Yeah.
one of the most precious women I've ever met.
Exactly. And it's like, and she's not done with this. You even mentioned she's not done with this body.
She's not done with that body.
So many issues. It's going to be glorified one day.
Yep. Didn't feel like I could talk about those things. And I'm not saying, I'm not judging. I'm not preaching somebody into heaven or hell at a funeral.
Right.
At those kinds of funerals, at this one in particular, the family had written down kind of an obituary, if you want to call it that, with some very complimentary statements about this particular person. And I just got up there and read it. And I said at the beginning, these are comments and words from the family, not from me.
Right.
These are not my words. And I didn't say that harshly. I just said, sort of matter of factly, I'm going to read you statements and sentiments from the family. And then I opened the Bible and I shared the gospel. So I didn't preach him one way or the other. But those kinds of funerals can be really, really difficult. And yet at the same time, I might have told this story before, but this was a few years ago. I got asked by a member of our church to go visit a niece, I believe, who was in the hospital dying of cancer. And this was a lady who had spent her whole life, I won't mention on the podcast publicly the things she was involved in, but it was not good. Right. And there were multiple things. I walked into the hospital room and I saw a woman who looked awful. That's not an exaggeration. I don't know how I could overstate how bad she looked. From the top of her head to the soles of her feet, her body looked like it had been run through a meat grinder. She looked horrible. I sat there by her bed. I shared the gospel with her. She began to cry. I asked her if she was ready to trust Jesus and him alone for salvation in her dying moments. She said yes. I didn't lead her in a sinner's prayer. I said, you're going to pray, and I'm going to ask the Holy Spirit to help you pray. And you voice that. And I did that. And she prayed the most simple, elementary, yet beautiful prayer, one of the most beautiful prayers I've ever heard. And while she was praying, now this, I know I've already talked about my Pentecostal background, and this might freak some people out, okay? This is, you know me, Cody, this is not some kinds of things I talk about often.
Right.
But I had my eyes closed when she started praying, but her prayer was so beautiful, I opened my eyes and looked at her, and I feel like for a split second, I saw one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen laying on that bed. And then immediately right back to this riddled body. And and as I saw that, and I'm looking at her as she's praying, tears streaming down her face, Ephesians chapter 1 came to my mind. Chosen in Christ before the foundation of the world.
Yep.
And I was like, so blown away by that. What does that have to do with Ozzy Osbourne? Could it be that even someone like him could, in the final 2 years of his life, be handed a Bible by somebody, fall in love with it, and surrender to Jesus before he died? Absolutely. And could he be enjoying the glory of heaven and God's presence right alongside somebody like MacArthur and Hulk Hogan? Yeah. It is definitely possible. Did that happen? I don't know, because I think the Gospels seem to indicate that there are people who can be very, very impressed with Jesus and still be short of being his sheep. Right. You know, they can look at Jesus and go, this is good. What he's saying is good.
I see the benefit of that.
I see the benefit of that, and yet not trust fully, not be fully given over to him. And so we don't know. But again, when you consider just these three people that we've talked about, what is it driving us towards? It's driving us towards the glorious grace of God and salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone.
Yeah. And when you really understand grace alone, you can legitimately say, if any of them is in the presence of God, and we at least believe two of them are, then it's only because of Christ's work. And if any of them is suffering eternal torment right now, it's because they deserve it and God is right to do so.
Absolutely.
And we don't have a problem saying any of that.
No, we don't.
What we don't want to do is almost Tebow-ize Ozzy Osbourne. Like, people were so obsessed with Tim Tebow when he was playing professionally in the NFL because he was a Christian. Oh man, if we could just get him on our team, then everything will be great. Yeah. Right. And we kind of want to do that with any convert, right? If it becomes Ozzy, then we can go back and Christianize Black Sabbath somehow. I don't know how that works, but we'll try. Yeah. We'll try real hard. Yeah. You know, a mega church will cover War Pigs next week. I don't know.
What was that post you posted? Or no, it was Keith Foskey. Was it Keith Foskey where he said,
Yeah.
There's some megachurch pastor trying to find a way to include Crazy Train and I forget what he was referencing.
Got it. Yep.
Okay.
Somewhere right now there's a big evil leader trying to figure out how to shoehorn a version of Crazy Train, a Hulkamania reference, and a Theo Huxtable retrospective into tomorrow's service.
That's right. We didn't even mention Theo. What's his name? Malcolm Jamal Warner.
Yeah.
Also died. That was so sad. Did you read about that?
Mm-mm.
Apparently, he's in Costa Rica swimming with his daughter. Got caught in some kind of riptide. They got her out, and they were unable to save him.
That is terrible.
It was awful.
I think I saw he's in his 50s.
Yeah, mid 50s, I think. But anyway, that I laughed at. I don't know if Keith Foskey listens to this, but that was hilarious. that was hilarious.
Well played, Keith.
Yep.
So, all right, we have grace. We have if somebody is under wrath, they deserve it, and it's the same grace that saves anybody. So, if you don't believe, how about you try believing? Trust in Jesus Christ alone for your salvation.
That is the call.
Yeah.
And the call goes out to all.
Yep.
That's what's so amazing about even watching Jesus in the Gospels. You know, I'm going to teach the end of chapter 10, John's Gospel, this Sunday. And Jesus is talking to people who have stones in their hand ready to kill him.
Yep.
And he's still proclaiming the gospel. He's still calling them to believe. And I have to ask the question, why is he doing that? And I think it's because there are sheep that are, you know, if a group of religious leaders have picked up stones to kill Jesus, I think we're safe in assuming that attracted some attention and there's a crowd around there.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that after it says they tried to seize him, but he eluded them and he withdraws. And he goes back to the region where John the Baptist was baptizing. And it says, and many followed him there.
Yeah.
And believed in his voice.
Yep.
And this comes after he says in chapter 10, my sheep know my voice. And they follow me. And no one's going to take them out of my hand.
Yep.
So if you hear and there is this longing, you may not understand everything. Like, I don't think that understanding everything theologically is a prerequisite to salvation.
Right. You're saved by grace through faith, not by understanding.
That's right. And what is the evidence of that? It's not being able to give a theological discourse on soteriology. The evidence of that is when Jesus is proclaimed, his lordship is proclaimed, and his word is proclaimed, you have this longing to just want to follow. And if that longing's in you, that very well could be the evidence of God's grace and the work of his Spirit that has transformed you from a goat into a sheep.
Yep. One of the most revolutionary theological lines I've ever heard was Doug Wilson talking about grace alone. It's like we're saved by grace alone, and it's not of works. And that includes my doctrinal works.
Yeah, that's right.
It does not. Your salvation doesn't hinge on you checking every box theologically and making sure that you know the depths of the Trinity, because you can't. You can't understand the Trinity. You can't comprehend it. You can apprehend it according to Scripture spiritually, but you're not going to understand even that.
Right.
So it has to be grace all the way down.
It does. It does. I mean, Paul says in 1 Corinthians 13, if I can fathom all mysteries but have not love, I'm nothing.
Yep.
And I don't think that love is I don't think Paul's only speaking about love between, brothers and sisters in Christ. I think he's talking about love for Christ himself. Mm-hmm. And it's from that our love for each other flows. And so, it's the call is to believe.
Yep.
And the only way that you're going to believe is that God graces you with the gift of faith. Mm-hmm. And I think that gift of faith is tasted in desire. It's tasted first in desire. Yeah. It will grow in essence of trust, confidence, and dependence. Mm-hmm. But it's first the first glimmer of light of the gift of faith that you've been brought out of the kingdom of darkness is this longing to just simply follow Jesus.
And that's how we can have hope, not just for MacArthur and Hulk Hogan. We can also have hope for guys like Ozzy Osbourne, because we don't believe that it's up to you to get yourself saved, which would make you the deciding factor.
That's right.
It's only God's grace, which is how someone like Ozzy or a murderer like Paul can be saved. That's what we skip over so often. How get that guy? Well, let me introduce you to my friend Paul. He offed some dudes.
He did. And not just, somebody that, stole money from him. He was killing Christians because they believed in Jesus.
Right.
And Christ turned him into the greatest missionary that's ever lived, who wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. I mean, it's incredible.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? So grace alone, faith alone. I would love, after I see Jesus's face, to shake MacArthur's hand, hug his neck, and have standing right there Hulk Hogan and Ozzy Osbourne. Because what a testament to the grace
and
of God.
And Sproul's just going to be chuckling in the background somewhere.
Right. What's wrong with you people?
What's wrong with you people?
Yeah.
Go love God, love your neighbor, make some music. We'll see you next time.